Let's take a look at some information and charts on Sushiswap for Brave New Coin. I like to talk about Sushi on the same day I talk about Uni, even though the analysis is largely the same. I'm not going to say anything different than I said for Uni, in that fundamentals, as bullish as they might be on part of the analysis, just don't seem to matter. And as bearish as the fundamentals seem to be for the on-chain metrics, I'm not so sure that matters either. I don't know what is moving the needle for price one way or the other than pure unadulterated speculation, which is why for me technicals rule the day on DeFi most of the time. So Sushi is or was at least initially a Uni clone, Uni fork. It's definitely moved on from that distinction. They've added a ton of different stuff that I'm not going to have time to talk about, but if you're curious, I'd definitely check out the website. They do seemingly more and more stuff every month. Lending, staking. They had more lending and borrowing stuff that looks to be wound down or minimalized or just geofenced. I'm not sure. Multi-chain AMM. So for me, that's a better value than just ETH AMM. We'll take a look at volumes and whatnot as well. But just like all the other DEXs, the UI is super simple. I actually like this better than Uni if we're doing a head-to-head nitty-gritty comparison, because I can do limit orders, I can look up liquidity, I can see gas right now at 139, and just like any other DEX, you can move from one token to the other. You can connect your wallet. That's not a big deal. But I do like advanced order types, like if you consider limit orders advanced, at the very least, that's a start. They also have a farming component for all sorts of farms, all sorts of coins, all sorts of APYs, right? You have to really dig into this stuff if you are actively involved on a day-to-day basis. For me, most of the time, the best APR, APYs are stuff that I don't want to be involved with, stuff you're risking getting rug pulled, that sort of thing. So always keep that in mind, that the APYs are high for a reason, typically. If we sort by TVL, the usual suspects, BTC and ETH, AMM, ETH USDC, ETH BIT. I don't know what BIT is exactly. And then it gets more crazier the further down the list here. Here's convex ETH, ETH DAI, ETH USDC or USDT, right? For me, I'm more comfortable in sitting in things that are reputable to some degree, despite what the APY, APR may or may not be. And it's always worth discussing when you're talking about AMMs. You need to know about impermanent loss. You need to know yield and LPing. Is it really passive income? Is it something more? Ming Zhao goes over this in a nice little thread here. She talks about covered options writing and some of the risks with this opposed to traditional yield, let's say. So I definitely give it a read if you're unfamiliar. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of AMMs or anything, but as long as you're aware of the risks as a user, that's all that really matters. So like I said, they have lending and borrowing, although I don't know why I don't see the markets here, if they're just not currently active or they're geofenced. I'm not so sure. We can try to search something. Yeah, nothing's coming up. I know at one point in time they did, and I'm sure they've talked about this. I haven't heard anything about it recently. They have a staking component as well, with a pretty nice staking APR, APY this is before inflation, obviously, but that's attractive considering you're earning on top of that as well from protocol revenue and what have you, continuously compounding. It's a pretty good deal, in my opinion, anyway. If we look at the TVL for Sushi in terms of USD, it looks like this is across the board, potentially. This is also something hard to know. They are multi-chain, so that's why I just prefer to go straight to DeFi Llama every single time, because DeFi Llama does a really good job at tracking, or at least attempting to track, TVL across all the chains. There's Sushi, you can hardly see it. It's number 12 amongst all of DeFi by TVL, and we can break that down even further, and you can see that most of the TVL sits on ETH, 5.35 billion. But it's worth looking to see what's rising, what's falling on the other stuff. Is that going to move price for Sushi though? No, it's not. It's not just, I've not seen it do that. Adding chains TVL going up and down, that doesn't seem to matter. If you look at ETH terms of TVL over the past year, it's flattened down. So as bullish as TVL looks on the USD notional side of things, based on the underlying, it isn't so bullish, right? If we're talking in ETH terms, we're seeing actually less and less ETH over time. There's also stablecoin considerations in here, so it's hard to say which is bullish, which is bearish, which to pay attention to, but TVL is definitely up in USD terms over the past year significantly. And if we go a little deeper on TVL stats and contract stats, if we look at just on ETH, TVL has essentially been at all-time highs for quite some time. Volumes slightly rising, flat, transactions slightly rising, users actually rising pretty significantly, calls flat, call contracts rising slightly. So there is an uptick in activity. There are more users here, certainly. As ETH fees get more significant, people are going to be looking elsewhere for trades. You know, if we pull up the PancakeSwap stuff, for example, we look at BSC here. Actually, if we look at Pancake, I already have a sense that these stats are going to be incredibly bullish looking based on ETH fees. Users rising significantly, doubling or tripling over the past 3 months as ETH fees are as high as they are. And you're seeing users on PancakeSwap basically at all-time highs again. I mean, it's down over the past couple days, but 500,000, 600,000 users per day. That is much higher than most ETH chains, TVL, sort of all over the place. I don't trust Binance. I don't trust most of the stuff at PancakeSwap, but they are showing significant upticks in activity based on users. If we look at the volumes across the board for ETH, as far as the DEX side of things, Uni is usually the 50% or greater slice, followed by Sushi. Currently today it's 10%, 1 inch, 0x. Sushi probably will never overtake Uni on a multi-week basis based on volume. For most people, Uni is kind of the go-to. I think for the ETH maxis, Uni is the go-to. That's just my general opinion and sense of things. Sushi here in the purplish blue at the bottom definitely gets a significant amount of volume per day, but it's not anything close to what Uni gets. And on a monthly basis, Sushi in the neon green there is definitely a significant portion of volume. It gets close to Uni on some months, but in general, it's all a Uni show. And I don't even think if these volumes flipped that it would matter for the token price. I'm in search of the holy grail, whether it be one metric or 5 metrics, literally anything that can tell me that there's some correlation between token price and what's going on fundamentally on chain or with the DEX, right? It's just not there. That's all the volume stuff. If we look at the on-chain token stuff, transaction counts all-time low, effectively, really, since the token got launched. For most DeFi stuff, you're not going to move it around. Any given day, it just kind of sits there. It does staking, it does AMM. It just does its thing. It's not a currency per se. So I'm not expecting miracles here, but at baseline in a vacuum for anything, that's bearish. Average transaction value is rising probably because ETH fees are rising. That makes sense to me there. Nothing really further to comment on. NVT, inverse metric of economic utility relative to price, has continued to increase. So as you're seeing declines in on-chain activity with market cap flat or rising, you're going to see rising NVT, which generally isn't bullish. NVT and MVRV were both tooled for BTC and non-DeFi. So it's worth thinking that we just need to find a metric that makes sense for DeFi, I think. I'm trying to use a wrench where we maybe need a screwdriver. I just need a different tool to figure out what's going on here. Active addresses have continued to slowly creep lower, and they're basically multi-month lows now since January. Again, that isn't bullish for me in a vacuum on anything. If you look at MVRV similar to NVT, MVRV is a measure of on-chain activity relative to price. For most coins, MVRV is highly correlative to the local highs in price. Usually MVRV reaches 2+ as a multiple to find the top there. Currently, we're at 0.95. The previous all-time high in Sushi was not an all-time high in MVRV. Wasn't a spike in MVRV. Was nothing in MVRV. It was just a flat line, right? MVRV this entire time just basically did nothing. Price kept rising, rising, rising. There's no signal here. There's no value here. It's telling you nothing, just like it's telling me nothing now. Potentially, an MVRV below 1 means that on-chain activity is actually greater than market cap here. It's close. It's not a mega gap, but it's also lower than market cap, which is usually pretty bullish for most coins. We just don't have enough data. At least I don't. I don't see a signal here. If you do, let me know in the comments. But I still think we just need another year of data for this type of tool to really figure out what's going on. If you look at market cap versus annualized revenue, Sushi is the #1 leader in the lowest multiple of market cap over annualized revenue. So this is a PE ratio for the legacy folks. And SNX sits here over here to 134x market cap over revenue ratio. Generally how this works is you want to be buying the value over here and avoiding the expensive stuff over here. If it's not pulling in revenue relative to its market cap, then that is generally means it's overbought or overvalued. And again, does this matter? Do I see Sushi's dominance on the market cap over revenue on the chart? Nowhere is that on the chart, the token chart. Sushi has also relatively high just general annualized revenue compared to its peers. You don't see that on the chart. There's no mega counter correlation with everything else in Sushi or Uni to say, this is it. This is the one thing that really matters here, or part of the picture. Just doesn't seem to matter. Google Trends, even at all-time highs and slowly pulling back, hasn't seemed to matter. So there are a lot of people looking for probably alternatives to ETH, or where can I bridge? Where can I actually do stuff that isn't ETH? Which is probably why Sushi is getting more popular. That'd be my guess. But you're not seeing this on price. You're not seeing price tick up. I mean, it ticked up slightly, but where it sits today, it's down with everything else. Just as a curiosity, Pancake Swap also extremely high. So a lot of people looking for alternatives, I think, in the retail side of things, other than ETH. Switching gears to technicals, this is the 5200 EMA VPVR volume RSI. And today we broke below the 200-day moving average, which certainly isn't bullish. We're below VPVR support at around 10.11 there. The next support down is between 7 and 8. It's basically the previous local low. And this had plenty of chances, plenty of time to break through that $15 level, and it just couldn't do it. It couldn't break the range. And now we are risking, at the very least, just continued ranging, which is fine. That's whatever. It's what you don't want is a mega bearish reversal if you're bullish. If you want Sushi to go to zero, you want to see these lows get taken out, and you want to see this volume profile not act as support. Volume in general since June has just been flat. There's really been nothing relative to where it was earlier in the year when things were popping off to carry price higher. So that's definitely been a problem. No bull div yet on these lows. So this could easily go lower, could easily just range. Certainly less bullish than it had been over the past few weeks. Sushi BTC is getting uglier and uglier for the bulls because it is breaking below the previous range of, let's say, 23K to 35K sats. That was a relatively well-established range that we had broke below in October. We retested it most recently earlier in November, and now we're below even the October low. So we're making new lower lows. We're below the cloud, we're below the 200. There's tons of volume support down here, though. That's the thing. So I think this will be okay. It's just this is light years from being bullish in the moment. It needs to get back above like 23K sats, basically. I don't know if it has enough time by the end of the year to do that. And I really don't think DeFi is going to be bullish in Q1, but I could be wrong. I really don't think we're going to see a repeat of Q1 2021, even January 2021, where everything kind of 4x from the bottom. Then on Sushi ETH, it's been nothing but death since March, just very clearly below the cloud since March, below the 200 since April, and it has not been above either of those things since May. So it's just cruising lows, 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 lows. Probably doesn't retest all-time lows, but probably wants to. I mean, there's no volume here. Again, you need emotion, you need capitulation for bottoms and tops, and there's none of that here. So it's just continuous slow bleed against ETH. Trend has been bearish for quite some time. You are finally starting to get a bull diff here with lower lows in price, higher lows in RSI, but there's just no volume. People just don't care. They would rather sit in ETH than Sushi here. They'd rather just hold on to ETH than want to rotate into ETH or into Sushi. If I had to guess at a bottom, probably between 17 and 20 or whatever this is, 0017 and 0020 on ETH, because that's where the previous volume was. So despite TVL and activity kind of picking up in a big way for Sushi over the past few weeks, the metrics that you'd want mattering, like protocol revenue or PE ratio, just don't seem to matter for price, and technicals are leaning slowly more and more bearish, especially against BTC and ETH. Lastly, I'll just mention the ETH BTC fund and DeFi portfolio. I trade for Technical Capital and Zyme Finance, a non-custodial portfolio management tool where you can send ETH or USDC or just watch what I'm doing. You can see everything, including AUM performance allocation, all of vaults I'm in here on Yearn, Comp, and Aave, as well as the trades in the trades tab down below. That's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.